Hello everyone, this is Mukesh Soni. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the famous novella Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now let's know briefly about the author, the novelist of this novella, George Orwell. George Orwell was born in 1903 and passed away in 1950, a legendary name in English literature, more considered as the 20th century best writer, English novelist, political author, and journalist. He was born as the Eric player in Bihar, India, and moved to London with his mother at the age of 1. He joined Indian Imperial Police and left for Burma in 1922. However, he returned home and after initial struggles started writing under the pseudonym George Orwell. His first work is titled as Down and Out in Paris and London. His best works include Animal Farm, which was published in 1945, 1984, which was published in 1949. His work is best known for its lucid prose, awareness of social justice, wit, and satire. He was a staunch supporter of democratic socialism and he used to oppose the totalitarianism. And there are few words which could be included in the popular vocabulary like big brother, thought police, double think. There are four major characters in this novella: Old Major, Napoleon, Snowball, Boxer, and Squealer. Animal Farm, the plot summary in brief. Animal Farm by George Orwell is an allegory of the events of the Russian Revolution of 1917. It deals with the ideas of freedom, rebellion, and the corrupting nature of power. Animal Farm is a novel about a group of animals who take control of the farm they live on. The animals get fed off of their master, Farmer Jones, so they kick him out. Once they are free of the tyrant Jones, life on the farm is good for a while, and there's a hope for a happier future of less work, better education, and more food. However, trouble brews as the pigs, Napoleon, and Snowball fight for the hearts and the minds of the other animals on the farm. Napoleon seizes power by force and ends up exploiting the animals just as Farmer Jones had done. The novel ends with the pigs behaving and even dressing like the humans the animals tried to get rid of in the first place. Let's know the social and the historical context of this novella. Animal Farm was written by George Orwell in 1945. This novel is an allegory even though it is set on a farm and stars a cast of farm animals. It reflects the events of the Russian Revolution of 1917. The animals are all clever representations of Russian politicians, voters, and workers. George Orwell used the novel to make his opinions on Russian leaders heard. Animal Farm, the key plot details. Old Major, the prize boar, calls a secret meeting of all the farm animals on Manor Farm. He states that rebellion against the human master Mr. Jones will one day come. A cow starts a rebellion by walking into the store shed. The animals end up chasing Mr. Jones off the farm. Now they are free, and the animals all agree on the 7 commandments they will live by. The farm is renamed as the Animal Farm. There's a hope for a better future. The pigs start to order the other animals around and take more food than they should. The animals bravely fight off a human attempt to retake the farm, and this becomes known as the Battle of the Cowshed. The animals set to work building a windmill, and Napoleon takes charge. Napoleon reduces the rations and rights of the animals and starts breaking the commandments. There is another invasion by the men, and the windmill is blown up. Boxer collapses whilst rebuilding it for the second time. Napoleon and the other pigs learn to walk on the hind legs, wear human clothes, and carry whips. Despite all the hard work, the animals of the farm are right back to where they began, hungry, scared, and exploited by those in charge. Let's know the 7 commandments which all the animals agreed to follow. 1. Whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. 2. Whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. 3. No animal shall wear clothes. 4. No animal shall sleep in a bed. 5. No animals shall drink alcohol. 6. No animal shall kill any other animal. 7. All animals are equal. Now let's discuss the plot summary in detail. Old Major inspires the animals to rebel. Old Major delivers a speech to all the farm animals. He points out that their lives are difficult, full of hardships, and they live in slavery because of the way Farmer Johns treats them. According to Old Major, all men are enemies, all animals are equal, and one day there'll be a rebellion. He then teaches the animals a song called Beast of England. The song is about animals overthrowing men and being. Old Major dies 3 nights after, and the 3 pigs, Snowball, Napoleon, and Squealer, they take Old Major's teaching and turn it into a way of thinking called animalism. The rebellion comes when Mr. Jones forgets to feed the animals and a fed up cow pushes her way into the store shed to look for food. The rest of the animals go in to help themselves, and Mr. Jones and his men try to get the animals back in line, but the animals chase them off the farm. Now it belongs to them. Animals rejoice in their victory. They change the name of the farm to Animal Farm and decide on 7 commandments to live by that focus on animals, equality, and avoiding behaving like Farmer Jones. Now the animals are happy, they work well together and more efficiently than Mr. Jones ever did. Boxer, the horse, always makes a huge effort. His motto is I'll work harder. The pigs begin to teach the others to read and write. It is hinted that Napoleon steals some milk for himself after the first day's harvest. The 2 pigs, Snowball and Napoleon, they often argue during the meetings. Snowball sets up committees focusing on education, reading, and writing. He reduces animalism to one idea for the simpler animals: 4 legs good and 2 legs bad, and the sheep regularly chant it. Napoleon, however, thinks educating the old animals is a waste of time, so he focuses on the youngsters, in particular the 9 puppies that he takes away from the mother to educate them himself. At this stage, the pigs start taking any extra apples and milk for themselves, and some animals complain. But Squealer pursued them, saying that if the pigs don't take any extra food, Jones might return. This is enough to make the other animals agree with him, and in this manner, the inequality between the pigs and the others begins here. Now, Mr. Jones and his men, they are trying to retake the farm, but the animals fight against the invasion, and this fight is known as the Battle of the Cowshed. Awards are given for bravery to Snowball and the Boxer. After the Battle of Cowshed, Snowball suggests building a windmill. Napoleon thinks that they should spend their time for building up the food stores instead of building up the new windmills. So, as the animals are about to vote on this matter, Napoleon calls his dogs into the barn. They are now fully grown and they chase Snowball away. So we have seen here now the Snowball is thrown away by Napoleon because Snowball would like to start the windmills, whereas the Napoleon would like to start the new food stores. Unfortunately, supplies and food run short, and the pigs start contacting with the humans. They move into the farmhouse, sleep in the bed, get up quite late compared to other animals. An incident occurs with some hens who protest against unfair treatment and refuse to hand the eggs over. Napoleon stops their food, and 9 of them died as a result. After this, Napoleon holds show trials where any animals that had spoken against him has to publicly confess the crime and will be killed later. The animals finished the windmill for the second time, but with no longer working hours and less food. During another attempted invasion by the men, the windmill is blown up. The pigs then break another commandment by drinking alcohol to celebrate the victory of the invasion. The farm is proclaimed a republic and a president is elected, but there was only one candidate to vote for, that was Napoleon. During the rebuilding of the windmill, Boxer Falls, the pigs claim that they will look after the boxer, but they sell him to a horse slaughter. Squealer lies to the other animals, telling them that Napoleon ensured that Boxer got the best treatment possible. The pigs use the money from the sale of Boxer to buy whiskey. Now, the time moves on and the pigs grow fatter while the other animals work harder and are given less food. They now cannot remember if they were better or worse off under the rule of Mr. Jones. The pigs learn to walk on two legs and have adopted all of Mr. Jones' bad habits that old Major told them to avoid in his speech. They invite the humans they once fought against to the farm. Napoleon declares that the farm will be called Manor Farm again, and the animals watching the meeting cannot tell the difference between the humans and the pigs. Animal Farm is read as a political satire, dystopian novel, and as an allegory. According to Orwell, this novella reflects the events leading up to Russian Revolution of 1917 and Stalinist era of Soviet Union. The novella in fact depicts the rise of Joseph Stalin and communism in the former Soviet Union. The pigs in Animal Farm represents Stalinist, whereas Napoleon's rise to power symbolically suggests the rise of Joseph Stalin to power. A strong satire on fascism, the novella allegorically narrates the story of animals of manor farm revolting against the humans in the hope of bright future, but only to witness the crumbling of the utopian ideals and rise of absolute corruption under Napoleon and his supporters. Animal Farm was rejected by many publishers before it finally got published in 1945. Even to this day, Animal Farm is considered to be one of the classics in English literature that blends political purpose with artistic flavor. Sometimes, in the race of urban life, we get detached from our motherland or native. Should we forget our native land or reconnect to it? How important is it to reconnect to our motherland or our native? To analyze this, let's understand a very famous poem, Homecoming Son, by a famous Ethiopian poet, Sergei Gabrimatin. About the poet, Sergei Gabrimatin was an Ethiopian poet, playwright, art director, pacifist, and a human rights activist. He was very proud of Ethiopia's long history of independence and her unique cultural heritage. He constantly insisted that his country needed heroes, and he used the theatre deliberately to teach his compatriot to respect the Ethiopian heroes of their past. The theme of the poem: the black boy who has been living in the foreign outfit now has an intense willingness to return to his motherland. He has been neglected and treated very badly, and now he is longing for the open country where he could breathe freely. He was born in Africa. In the process of welcoming the son back home, the poem portrays the glorious heritage, the rich culture, and pride of being black in a place called home. The poem is a welcome note to unholy stranger who has abandoned his home. The poet begins the poem saying, "Look where you walk, unholy stranger. This is the land of the eighth harmony in the rainbow, black. It is the dark side of the moon brought to light. This is a canvas of the god's master stroke." In these lines, the poet invites the stranger African child to be part of his native culture. He calls the man as barefoot, unholy stranger. The poet advises the man to walk freely and peacefully because he is walking in his own land. Ethiopia is the land of the eighth harmony in the rainbow. Eighth harmony in the rainbow is black color, which is the identity of black community in Ethiopia. Even the dark side of the moon brings light. The poet is comparing the color, which is black, which brings here light, and this is a canvas of God's masterstroke to create them and give them black color. The poet further says, out of your foreign outfit, unholy stranger, feel part of the great work of art. Walk in peace, walk alone, walk tall, walk free, walk naked. Let the feelers of your motherland kiss your bare feet. Let her breathe, kiss your naked body. In these lines, the poet says that the man is in the foreign outfit. He is asking them to feel the great work of art. He is guided by his ancestral spirits, and the earth of his mother's native land will soothe his tiring and worn out bare feet. Here, we can see that the black boy lived in a strange land. He suffered an untold agony. If he stayed longer, he might fall into evil ways and lead a sinful life. The poet called the barefoot boy an unholy stranger. The boy went on foot, toiling along his path. His senses were fully awake to receive the impressions of beauteous aspects of nature. He could walk in peace, he could walk alone, he could walk tall, he could walk free, and he could walk naked. The poet continues, but watch, watch where you walk, forgotten stranger. This is the very depth of your roots, black, where the tom-toms of your fathers vibrated in the fearful silence of the valleys, shook in the colossus bodies of the mountains, hummed in the deep chest of the jungles, walk proud. Here, the poet tries to remind them about their identity, color, and rich culture of tom-toms, a cylindrical musical instrument vibrated by the fathers in the fearful silence, and where songs were sung, keeping their lips closed, because they fought long for their independence. The poet is asking the young sons to walk proud. The black boy was conscious of his black body and sunburnt face. The people of his motherland gave a kiss to his bare feet. Her breath kisses his naked body. The tom-toms of his father's voice vibrated with passion in the fearful silence of the valleys. He could walk proud in the deep chest of the jungles. In the next line, the poet continues, watch, listen to the calls of the ancestral spirit's prodigal son, to the call of the long awaited soil. They welcome you home, home. In the song of birds, you hear your suspended family name. The winds whisper the golden names of your tribal warriors. The fresh breeze blown onto your nostrils floats your bones turned to dust. Walk tall, the spirits welcome, the lost son returned. Here, the poet tries to remind the man not to forget his roots and finally ask him to renew his roots with his own people and culture as he has been separated from his roots for a long time, other than being a prodigal son spending money carelessly. They could hear the birds' song singing about their suspended family names. The winds of Ethiopia whispers the golden names of the tribal warriors of the land. Hence, the lost son is welcomed. Here, the black boy was an extravagant who spent all his fortune and eventually became a poor. The boy was forced to return home empty handed. It was quite a surprise for the boy that no one from his motherland denied to accept him. The winds whispered the golden names of his tribal warriors. Even the fresh breeze blew into his nostrils, and the spirits welcomed their lost son's return. Watch and out of your foreign outfit, brother. Feel part of the work of art. Walk in laughter, walk in rhythm, walk tall, walk free, walk naked. Let the roots of your motherland case your body. Let the naked skin absorb the home sun and shine ebony. Here, the poet asks the sons to walk in laughter, walk in rhythm, walk tall, walk naked, with full of freedom and independence, because the roots of motherland their body and let the naked body absorb the home sun and shine ebony. Here, the naked body absorbed the sunlight and shine black as ebony. The black boy inherited everything. The roots of his motherland celebrated the return of the homecoming son because he was lost and now he was found. Then he was found. As his nature is well known to his people, so he would be shown sympathy and consideration. So his own home was the only paradise, a place of supreme bliss for him. He enjoyed the blessings of outward sunshine and inward peace and happiness. To sum up, we can say that in this poem, Homecoming Son, Sege talks about an educated African man who feels like a guest in his own land after returning from abroad. Through this poem, the poet provides to guide the man who is like a lost child in his own land. The poet invites the strange African child to be part of his native culture. Hi, dear friends, this is Mukesh Soni. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we shall discuss a famous poem called Measurements, written by Nawakanta Baruha, a famous Assamese poet. This poem is an extract from Dancing Earth, an anthology of poetry from the Northeast India. It has been translated from Assamese language into English by Dr. Bez Baruha. Let's know about the poet. Measurement is a poem written by the Assamese poet Nawakanta Baruha. Nawakanta Baruha was born in 1926 in Purani Gundam, Nagaon district, Assam. He belongs to the new generation of poets in Assamese literature. He received the Sahitya Academy Award for Assamese literature in 1975. About the poem. The poem has a good deal of influence of T.S. Eliot. It reminds the beginning of Prufrock and depicts the purposelessness, hollowness, and faithfulness of modern existence. Faithlessness, yeah. About the poem. The poem has a good deal of influence of T.S. Eliot. It reminds the beginning of Prufrock and depicts the purposelessness, hollowness, and faithlessness of modern existence. It bears the influence of the European decadent culture, which reveals the inner crisis of the human soul through doubts, apprehensions, boredom, and frustration. In this poem, Nabakanta Barua talks about city life in which man has to go through an endless process of measurements, resulting into nothingness. The poem seems to begin with talking about stitching of clothing in a materialistic sense, but in its deeper meanings, it gives philosophical and spiritual perspectives. Different kinds of metaphors have been used to clarify the situations of nothingness and barrenness. Theme of the poem. Measurements is a metaphorical poem that invites multiple interpretations. The poem can be read as manifestation of the spirit of nationhood in the background of reign of terror unleashed on the northeast India, especially on Assam, in the name of ethnic violence, communal tensions, and separatist movements. The poet's longing for the stitching of a garment for men can be taken metaphorically as stitching of all the states, including the northeastern states, into the garment of one nation called India. The poem can be read as a lament on the emptiness of human existence. The poem begins, "It is evening now. Let's go to the tailor's to get measured. Measurements of neck, chest, hands, and arms, measurements of the thumb. We shall give measurement of the palm and the heart, the entrails, the spleen, and the liver, give count of hormones and love." The poem seems to begin with the stitching of clothing by a tailor in his shop. The narrator of the poem proposes to visit the tailor's shop to give measurement so that the tailor could stitch the clothes that fits him or her. The identity of the narrator is not disclosed, and the poet uses the first person plural pronoun we to address the narrator. The poem begins with a measurement of a person by a tailor and turns into a deeper rendering of the inner crisis of the human soul. It takes a philosophical turn as the poem progresses into the further stanzas. In these verses, the poet gives the measurement of the complete human body as if the clothing is being stitched not only for the outer body but also for the inner structures of the human beings. Let us give measurements of life, of this, that, and several things. Give only the measurements. We shall think of the stitching later on. For the time being, let's just give the measurements. We can only give measurements. In these lines, the poem takes a metaphorical turn. At the same time, it reminds the reader that what it began with, the stitching of clothing, which is no longer a matter of concern, as there are many things to be done. It shows that what one begins with never finishes, and another new task is yet to be done, or any other task which started earlier also need to be dealt with. Therefore, people are caught into an endless series of work, just like giving measurements. Further, the poem shows that the helplessness of human beings, that they can only give measurements. Life has become so mechanical that it has made human life a complete failure in almost every sense. We can only take reckonings. We shall record the suicides have swelled considerably. We shall give count of the letters in a speech, give count of the Christian in Arabia, just give measurements. This section of the poem discusses different kinds of complexities of human life in which man seems to be very helpless again and again. People commit suicide as they do not find any way out of their problems and miseries. People have to measure. They should take serious considerations of every activity and actions that they perform. Even the letters of one's speeches are to be measured. This seems too much of the mechanical way of living. Perhaps everything is just a process or a matter of measurements for the narrator. We shall think of the stitching later on, only think. Someone after us will measure anew, saying that our measurements were all wrong. Fresh new measurements. When will someone stitch the garment to fit men? These lines seem to depict the aimlessness and hollowness of human existence, in which man does not have any control over things happening around him. His destiny is predetermined, everything is already set to happen, and man cannot change it. Therefore, he delays taking any determined action against the stagnation, weariness, problems of his life. In these lines, the poem shows that all efforts made by us are all futile, and facts are bound to change their meanings and context after a certain period of time. These verses also express the relativity of truth and suggest that truth is not timeless. All human efforts are caught in an endless process and never reach their completion. Truth and fact also lose their meaning and relevance in modern times. In these lines, the poem moves beyond the limits of modernity of the European traditions in the 20th century and links all human activities to destructive semiotic conditions in which the signified is deferred into an endless series of signifiers. The poem shows that all measurements of life are just an endless process, and there is no real measurement as such. There is not any final cloth that is better stitched to fit us. Everything is just a process without an end, without any meaning. Therefore, the poet ends the poem with a rhetorical question: when will someone stitch the garment to fit men? This rhetorical question perhaps refers to the pessimist attitude to life and questions many issues like helplessness, procrastination, the futility of human efforts, obscurity, mystery, and illusion. To sum up, the poem can also be read as a critique of modern civilization. It critiques the idea of development and progress. As the day is moving from evening to night, the world is moving towards darkness in the name of development and progress. In the present times, everything is measured in economic terms. But no one is concerned about what to do with these measurements or how to stitch the garment for the nation with these measurements. Even the measurements done by earlier generation will be replaced by the next generation. That means to say that generations will engage themselves only in measuring the progress of a society in economic terms, but no one will ever think of stitching the garment called happiness that will fit all human beings. No one is really thinking about one central question: what should be the solution to achieve? Dear friends, do you want to know what is anarchy? Do you want to know how the people live in anarchy and are being treated in anarchy? Then you should read the poem Oh How I Love Your Streets, written by Fayaz Ahmed Fayaz. This poem is translated from Urdu by Khalid Hassan. Fayaz Ahmed Fayaz, who was born in 1911 and passed away in 1984, he is one of the most celebrated and probably the greatest Pakistani Urdu poets. He was influenced by the works of Iqbal and Mirza Ghalib. His poems assimilate modern Urdu with the classical, focusing excessively on expansion of socialism in the country. He spent many years in prison for opposing the oppressive regime. He spent his last days in exile. The poem begins, Oh, how I love your streets, my land of birth, where no one may now walk with head held high, and those who venture out at the risk of life and limb must keep their eyes to the ground. New rules, new regulations have been let down. The poem opens with the poet's intense attachment towards his land of birth when he recalls the streets which are deserted now due to the prevailing anarchy. His land of birth is ruled by the dictator, and citizens are compelled to walk heads down. They are not allowed to walk their heads held high. It means to say that the anarchy is deep rooted here, and no one dares to speak or raise voice. The poet further remarks that those who dare to go out, they go at the risk of life and limbs. People have to keep their eyes to the ground as they are governed by the oppressive regime, where people are forced to follow the rules and regulations, and no one dares to protest or raise voice against such system. So in these lines, the deep-rooted anarchy is being portrayed here. Dogs are free to roam, but stones are locked away. No excuse do the oppressors need, for they are now both judge and prosecutor. But man has always fought oppression. The oppressor's ways haven't changed, nor the ways of those who fight back. Here, in this anarchy, dogs are free to roam, whereas the citizens are not. Dogs are compared to rulers who have all the powers. On the other hand, citizens don't have freedom to walk freely. Even all the stones are locked away. The deep rooted anarchy has also controlled the judiciary system, where the oppressor himself is a judge as well as a prosecutor. The oppressor does not need any excuse for his cruelty. No fair judgment can be expected in this system. Further, the poet comments that neither the oppressor's ways of ruling nor the ways of those who fight have not changed. There are only few people who raise the voice against such anarchy, but it does not bring great change because those who are fighting against such system have not brought any changes in their methods for bringing change. Hence, in these lines, the poet has suggested to be the change, to bring the change. He has suggested that to bring the change, they have to be the change. The poet continues, Our flowers have always bloomed through fire. Operation never wins and we never lose. The oppressor rides high today, playing God for a few days. But those who keep the faith can deal with fortune's ups and downs. On an optimistic note, the poet says that flowers have bloomed through fire. Here, flowers refer to people, the sufferer, fire refers to the oppressor. The citizens believe that the oppressors will never win. and people who raise their voice against such oppressive regime never lose. The poet strongly believes that such oppressors may be powerful today. They pretend to be omnipotent, but such powers are temporary, not permanent. The poet instills the hope that faith in oneself is needed to wade through the dark times. Such anarchy will fall down and a new era will emerge where citizens will be free and happy. Hence, the poem ends with an optimistic note. Let's summarize the poem. This poem explains how an oppressive regime functions. The poem begins with a description of the poet's land of birth, which is deserted due to the dictatorship. In this oppressive regime, the dictator rules the country cruelly and forces the citizens to abide the rules and regulations forcibly. Hence, the poem starts on a bleak note of eccentric oppressor's regime. It ends with a strong note of faith, dissent, and hope. Dear friends, thank you so much for watching this video. Kindly subscribe my channel and comment. For any online coaching, online tuition, online classes, you can contact me on my WhatsApp number 6361617669, or you can mail me on mukeshenglish@gmail.com. Thank you once again.